Former soldier, two sisters fleeing for their lives, and a decision that defied everything society expected of him. But what the Comanche chief chose to do next changed all their lives forever. This is not just a rescue. It's the beginning of something no one saw coming. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. The Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty trail that wound through the rugged landscape between San Antonio and the Western Territories. It was the summer of 1867, and the land still bore the scars of recent conflicts between settlers and the native tribes who had called this land home for generations. The air shimmered with heat, distorting the horizon into wavering mirages that promised water where there was none. Captain James Morgan rode his chestnut mare with the practiced ease of a man who had spent most of his 32 years in the saddle. His blue cavalry uniform, though faded and dusty from weeks on the trail, still bore the insignia of his rank with pride. James had sharp, angular features that spoke of his Scottish heritage, with piercing gray eyes that missed nothing and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His broad shoulders and muscular frame testified to years of hard living on the frontier, yet there was a gentleness in his expression that contradicted the harsh world he inhabited. He had been discharged from military service 3 months prior, after the Army deemed his sympathies toward the native populations too problematic for continued command. James had committed the unforgivable sin of questioning orders that would have led to the massacre of a peaceful Kiowa village. Now he worked as a scout and translator, his knowledge of several tribal languages making him valuable, despite his controversial reputation. The afternoon was growing late when James noticed the dust cloud on the southern horizon. His hand instinctively moved to the rifle strapped to his saddle as he urged his mare toward a rocky outcropping that would provide a better vantage point. What he saw through his spyglass made his blood run cold. 3 riders, clearly Anglo settlers by their clothing and equipment, were pursuing 2 figures on foot. Even from this distance, James could see that the pursued were young women, their dark hair streaming behind them as they ran desperately toward a dry creek bed. The way they moved, the traditional deerskin dresses they wore, marked them as Comanche. James knew he had seconds to make a decision. Interfering could cost him his life, either at the hands of the settlers or later, if word spread that he had defended Indians against white men. But the image of those 2 women running for their lives stirred something deep within him, a memory of his younger sister who had died of fever when he was just 15. He had been powerless to save her then. He would not be powerless now. Digging his heels into his mare's flanks, James thundered down the hillside, his rifle already in his hands. The distance closed rapidly, and soon he could hear the crude shouts of the pursuers, their intentions clear and malicious. The 2 women had taken shelter behind a fallen cottonwood tree, their chests heaving with exhaustion. "Hold there!" James's voice rang out with the authority of his former rank as he positioned his horse between the settlers and their prey. The 3 men pulled up short, their horses stamping and snorting. The leader, a thick-set man with a scarred face and tobacco-stained beard, spat on the ground. "This ain't your business, stranger. Them savages killed settlers not 20 miles from here last week. We're just evening the score." James kept his rifle steady, pointed at the ground but ready to raise in an instant. "These are 2 unarmed women. Whatever happened last week, they weren't part of it. Turn around and ride back to wherever you came from." The second rider, younger and with nervous eyes, shifted in his saddle. "Come on, Dutch. He's got the drop on us, and there's talk of soldiers coming through these parts. Ain't worth the trouble." But Dutch wasn't convinced. His hand crept toward the pistol at his hip. "1 man against 3? I'll take them odds, and maybe we'll have some fun with them squaws after we deal with you." The words had barely left his mouth when James raised his rifle with fluid precision. The shot rang out, echoing across the plains, and Dutch's hat flew from his head. A neat hole punched through the crown. Before the other 2 could react, James had already worked the lever action, chambering another round. "The next one won't be a warning," James said, his voice deadly calm. "You have 3 seconds to turn those horses around." Dutch's face had gone pale beneath his weathered tan. The 3 men exchanged glances, and then, with muttered curses, they wheeled their horses and galloped back the way they had come. James watched them until they disappeared over the rise, then slowly lowered his rifle. He turned his attention to the two women behind the fallen tree. They had watched the entire exchange with wide eyes, and now stood frozen, uncertain whether their situation had improved or simply changed hands. James carefully placed his rifle back in its scabbard and raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "I am friend," he said in halting Comanche, his accent marking him as an outsider, but his effort earning him a flicker of interest from the older of the two women. "I mean no harm. Are you hurt?" The older sister stepped forward slightly, her chin raised with dignity despite her desperate circumstances. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with high cheekbones, luminous dark eyes that reflected both intelligence and caution, and long black hair that hung in two thick braids adorned with small silver ornaments. She appeared to be in her early 20s, her skin the color of burnished copper, and despite the terror she had just endured, she held herself with regal bearing. Her deerskin dress was intricately decorated with beadwork and fringe, marking her as someone of importance within her tribe. "You speak the language of the people," she said carefully in Comanche, her voice musical despite its wariness. "But you wear the clothes of the bluecoats who make war on us." James dismounted slowly, keeping his movements non-threatening. "I was a soldier once, but no longer. My name is James Morgan. What are you called?" The woman studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of his words against the evidence of her eyes. Finally, she replied, "I am Ayana. This is my sister, Kaya. We are daughters of Chief Brave Eagle of the Nokoni band." The younger sister, Kaya, peeked out from behind Ayana. She couldn't have been more than 17 summers, with the same striking beauty as her older sister but with a rounder face that still held traces of childhood. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also curiosity, as she regarded this strange white man who had saved them. "Chief Brave Eagle," James repeated, recognition dawning in his expression. "I have heard of him. He is known as a man of honor, one who seeks peace with the whites when possible. How did his daughters come to be so far from their people and in such danger?" Ayana's jaw tightened, and pain flashed across her features. "We were gathering medicinal herbs near the river when we were surprised by those men. We ran, but they followed. They would have—" She did not finish the sentence, but the implication hung heavy in the hot air. Kaya spoke for the first time, her voice smaller and younger than her sister's. "You saved us. Our father teaches that there are good men among all peoples. You are proof of his wisdom." James felt a strange warmth spread through his chest at the gratitude in the young woman's eyes, but it was Ayana who held his attention. There was something about her, a strength and grace that went beyond her physical beauty. When their eyes met, he felt a connection he could not name, as if some invisible thread had been woven between them in those few moments of shared danger. "Where is your camp?" James asked, shaking himself from his thoughts. "I will take you back to your people." Ayana hesitated, clearly torn between the need to return home and the danger of revealing her camp's location to a white man, even one who had saved them. Finally, she nodded slowly. "It is a half-day's ride to the north in the canyon country, but you must understand, our warriors may not welcome a white man, even one who has helped us. Some have lost family to your people and carry much anger in their hearts." "I understand the risk," James replied, "but I cannot leave you here unprotected. Those men may return with others. Please, allow me to see you safely home." The journey northward began as the sun started its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. Ayana and Kaya rode together on James's mare while he walked alongside, leading the horse by the reins. The arrangement had been Ayana's suggestion, a practical solution that also allowed her to maintain some measure of control over the situation. James had agreed without hesitation, though the miles ahead would be hard on his legs. As they traveled, Kaya's natural curiosity began to overcome her initial fear. "Why did you help us?" she asked in careful English, surprising James with her command of his language. "The other white men wanted to hurt us. Why are you different?" James considered the question as he navigated around a cluster of prickly pear cacti. "I suppose because I believe that a person's character matters more than the color of their skin or which people they were born to. My mother taught me that all people bleed the same red blood, feel the same joys and sorrows. Those men back there, they let hate poison their hearts. I refuse to do the same. Ayanna, who had been silent since they departed, spoke softly. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. Is she still living? She passed 5 years ago, James replied, unable to keep a note of sadness from his voice. Cholera took her and my father both within days of each other. It is one reason I stayed in the army longer than I might have otherwise. I had no family left to return to. Then we share the pain of loss, Ayanna said, and when James looked up at her, he saw genuine empathy in her dark eyes. Our mother died bringing Kaya into the world. Our father raised us along with the other women of our tribe. We have known the ache of an incomplete family. The conversation created an unexpected intimacy among the three of them, a bridge built across the chasm of their different worlds. As the miles passed, they talked more freely. Kaya told stories of life in the Comanche camp, of hunting buffalo and preparing hides, of the songs her people sang, and the dances they performed. James shared tales of his childhood in Missouri, of learning to track and hunt from an old mountain man named Silas, of the books his mother had insisted he read by firelight even when his hands were too tired from farm work to hold them steady. But it was Ayanna who fascinated James most. She spoke less than her sister, but when she did, her words carried weight. She described the difficult balance her father tried to maintain between preserving their way of life and adapting to the encroaching reality of white settlement. She spoke of watching the buffalo herds dwindle, of seeing other bands forced onto reservations where disease and despair awaited them. My father believes there must be a path between complete surrender and endless war, Ayanna explained, as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. But finding that path grows harder with each season. Young warriors grow impatient with talk of peace when they see their hunting grounds stolen and their people starved. And the whites, they seem to want only our disappearance, whether through death or by forcing us to become like them. James heard the frustration and sorrow in her voice, and he recognized the impossible position she and her people occupied. Your father sounds like a man of great wisdom and courage. It takes more bravery to seek peace than to make war, especially when war might be easier. Ayanna looked down at him, and in the fading light, James saw something shift in her expression. The wariness that had shadowed her features since their meeting began to soften, replaced by a cautious warmth. You truly believe this? Even though peace might mean your people take our lands? I believe that unless both peoples can find a way to share this land with honor and respect, the result will be tragedy for everyone, James said firmly. I have seen enough killing. I am tired of burying young men, both white and native, who died because older men could not find wisdom. They made camp as darkness settled fully over the plains. James built a small fire in a depression that would hide most of the light, and shared his provisions of dried beef and hardtack with the sisters. It was meager fare, but Kaya declared it an adventure, her youthful resilience already recovering from the day's trauma. Ayanna remained more reserved, though James noticed her watching him when she thought he was not looking. After Kaya had fallen asleep wrapped in James's bedroll, Ayanna joined him where he sat keeping watch. The fire had burned down to embers, providing just enough light to see by without advertising their position to anyone who might be searching for them. I must thank you again for what you did today, Ayanna said quietly, settling herself on a flat rock near where James sat against his saddle. Not just for saving our lives, but for treating us with respect. Many whites see us as less than human, as obstacles to be removed or animals to be tamed. James turned to face her, struck once again by her beauty in the soft glow of the dying fire. But it was more than her physical appearance that drew him. There was an intelligence in her eyes, a depth of spirit that called to something within him. I see you as a woman of courage and grace who loves her sister and her people. I see someone who faces an uncertain future with dignity rather than despair. How could I see you as anything less than remarkable? The words had come out more intensely than James had intended, revealing feelings he had not fully acknowledged even to himself. Ayanna's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The night sounds surrounded them, the distant howl of a coyote, the whisper of wind through the sparse grass, the soft breathing of Kaya in sleep. You barely know me, Ayanna finally said, but her voice was gentle, not dismissive. "We have shared only a few hours. Sometimes a few hours can reveal more truth than years of casual acquaintance," James replied. "In times of danger, people show their true nature. Today I saw your strength, your protectiveness of your sister, your willingness to trust despite having every reason not to. I saw who you really are." Ayanna was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the glowing embers. When she spoke again, her voice carried a vulnerability that had not been there before. "And what you saw, did you find it worthy?" James leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. "I found it extraordinary." The connection between them in that moment was almost tangible, a current of understanding and attraction that transcended the vast differences in their backgrounds. But Ayanna pulled back slightly, shaking her head. "This cannot be," she said softly, though James heard regret in her words. "You are white. I am Comanche. Our peoples are at war. Even if my heart were to feel something for you, how could such a thing ever lead to anything but pain?" "I do not know," James admitted honestly. "But I have learned that running from something because it is difficult is not the same as being wise. Yes, there are obstacles. Yes, our peoples are in conflict. But does that mean we must allow that conflict to dictate every choice we make?" Before Ayanna could respond, a sound in the darkness made them both freeze. James's hand moved to his rifle as he rose silently to his feet. Ayanna woke Kaya with a gentle touch, and the three of them stood tense and ready as the sound of approaching horses grew clearer. Then, from the darkness, a voice called out in Comanche, "Ayanna, Kaya, if you are there, show yourselves. It is Swift Arrow. We have been searching for you." Relief flooded Ayanna's face. "We are here," she called back. "We are safe." 5 Comanche warriors rode into the circle of firelight, their faces showing both relief and suspicion when they saw James standing with the 2 women. The leader, a young man with a fierce expression and a jagged scar across his left cheekbone, immediately fixed James with a hostile stare. "What is this white man doing with you?" Swift Arrow demanded, his hand on the knife at his belt. "Did he capture you?" "No," Kaya rushed to explain. "He saved us." "There were 3 bad white men who were chasing us, and James stopped them. He was bringing us home." The warriors exchanged glances, clearly uncertain. Another warrior, older than Swift Arrow with gray streaking his long hair, spoke up. "Is this true, Ayanna?" "Every word," Ayanna confirmed, stepping closer to James in a gesture that was not lost on anyone present. "James Morgan risked his life to protect us. He could have ridden past and saved himself trouble, but instead he stood between us and those who would have harmed us. He deserves our gratitude, not our suspicion." Swift Arrow did not look convinced, and James could see the jealousy burning in the young warrior's eyes as he watched how Ayanna positioned herself. "Then we thank him for his help," Swift Arrow said stiffly, "and he can return to his own people now. We will take you home." "He will come with us to our camp," Ayanna said firmly, her tone brooking no argument. "My father will want to thank him personally, and it would be dishonorable to send him away into the night after what he has done." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. James could sense that Swift Arrow wanted to argue, but Ayanna's authority as the chief's daughter, combined with the agreement of the other warriors, prevented him from objecting further. With reluctant nods, the Comanche warriors agreed to escort all of them to the camp. The remainder of the journey passed in tense silence. James rode his mare now, with Kaya mounted behind one of the older warriors. Ayanna rode beside James, a positioning that was clearly deliberate and that made Swift Arrow's jaw clench with barely suppressed anger. As they rode, James began to understand that the complications facing any potential relationship with Ayanna went far beyond the simple fact of their different races. The Comanche camp came into view as dawn broke over the canyon walls, revealing a settlement of perhaps 40 lodges arranged in a wide circle beside a clear-running stream. Smoke from morning fires rose into the cool air, and James could see women beginning the day's work, while children played near the water's edge. The arrival of the warriors with their unexpected guest caused an immediate stir, and soon they were surrounded by curious onlookers, some friendly, others openly hostile. Chief Brave Eagle emerged from the largest lodge at the center of the camp. He was a man in his early 50s, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that bore the marks of both wisdom and sorrow. His long hair, streaked with gray, was adorned with eagle feathers that denoted his rank and achievements. Despite his age, he moved with the grace of a warrior, and his dark eyes missed nothing as he took in the scene before him. "Father!" Kaya rushed forward, embracing the chief with the uninhibited joy of a cherished daughter. Ayanna followed more sedately, but James could see the relief and love that passed between father and daughter when Brave Eagle pulled her close. "We feared the worst when you did not return yesterday," Brave Eagle said in Comanche, his voice deep and resonant. "Swift Arrow and the others have been searching through the night. What happened?" Ayanna stepped back and gestured toward James, who had dismounted and now stood respectfully at a distance, aware that every eye in the camp was upon him. "This man, James Morgan, saved our lives. We were attacked by 3 white settlers who meant us great harm. He put himself in danger to protect us, and then ensured we returned home safely." Brave Eagle's gaze shifted to James, and for a long moment the chief studied him in silence. James met his eyes steadily, neither challenging nor submissive, simply allowing the older man to take his measure. Finally, Brave Eagle spoke, this time in accented but clear English. "You are the one they call Captain Morgan, the soldier who refused to attack Chief Running Bear's peaceful camp last year." James was surprised that his reputation had reached even here. "I am no longer a captain, but yes, I am that man. I could not follow orders that would have meant the slaughter of innocents. And for this, your own people cast you out," Brave Eagle observed. "Yet you still wear the clothes of the Bluecoats." "These are simply clothes," James replied calmly. "They do not define who I am or what I believe. I judge each person by their actions and character, not by the color of their skin or the nation of their birth. Your daughters were in danger, and I did what any honorable man would do." A murmur ran through the gathered crowd, some approving, others skeptical. Swift Arrow pushed forward, his face dark with anger. "Words are easy, Chief. How do we know this is not some trick? Perhaps he wishes to learn the location of our camp to report it to the army. Perhaps he saved Ayanna and Kaya, only to gain our trust, so he can betray us later." "Swift Arrow speaks from concern for our people," Brave Eagle acknowledged. "But his words are driven by fear rather than wisdom. Tell me, James Morgan, what do you seek here? What is your purpose in our lands?" James took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would determine not just his own fate, but potentially something far more important. His eyes found Ayanna's in the crowd, and he saw both hope and apprehension in her beautiful face. The connection he felt with her, though born in a single day and night, was undeniable and powerful. He had spent years wandering without purpose after losing his family. Now, standing in this Comanche camp, facing a chief who had every reason to mistrust him, James finally understood what he truly wanted. "I seek only to live in peace and to find a place where I belong," James said honestly. "I have no family among my own people, no ties that bind me to their world. I respect your people's ways and would learn from them if permitted. And I will speak plainly, Chief Brave Eagle, even though my words may sound presumptuous. In the short time I have known your daughter Ayanna, I have come to admire her courage, intelligence, and spirit. With your permission and hers, I would like to know her better, to explore whether what I feel might grow into something deeper." Shocked gasps and angry muttering erupted from the crowd. Swift Arrow's hand went to his knife, and for a moment violence seemed inevitable. But Brave Eagle raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. "You dare to speak of courting my daughter?" Swift Arrow snarled before the chief could respond. "You, a white man whose people murder ours, steal our lands, break every treaty they make? Ayanna is promised to me. We are to be married when the leaves turn colors. Your words are an insult to her honor and mine." James's heart sank at this revelation, but before he could speak, Ayanna herself stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "I made no promise to you, Swift Arrow. You and my father discussed such a possibility, but I gave no consent. I am not a horse to be traded or a blanket to be given away. I have my own voice, my own heart. Ayanna." Brave Eagle's voice carried both surprise and warning. "This is not the time." "Then when is the time, father?" Ayanna challenged, and James saw the same fierce spirit that had first drawn him to her now directed at her own father. When Swift Arrow has already built a lodge for me, when the entire camp expects me to submit to a marriage I never agreed to, I have been silent too long, honoring your wishes, but I will be silent no more. She turned to face the assembled tribe, her voice ringing clear and strong. James Morgan saved my life and Kaya's life. He showed more honor in a few hours than many men show in a lifetime. He speaks our language, respects our ways, and sees us as equals rather than as savages to be exterminated or tamed. Yes, he is white, but he is also good and brave and kind. If he wishes to court me, then I say he has earned the right to try, and I will listen to what my own heart tells me. The camp erupted in chaos. Warriors shouted their opinions. Women clustered in groups debating heatedly, and children watched wide-eyed as drama unfolded. Swift Arrow looked as if he might attack James on the spot, restrained only by the presence of the chief. Brave Eagle himself stood silent, his face unreadable, but James could see the conflict warring within him. Finally, the chief raised his hand again, and slowly, reluctantly, the camp quieted. "Enough," Brave Eagle commanded. "This is a matter that requires wisdom, not hot tempers and hasty words. James Morgan, you will be my guest for 3 days. During this time, you will live among us, and we will see if your actions match your words. Swift Arrow, you will not harm this man while he is under my protection. Ayana, we will speak privately about your outburst, but I will not force you into a marriage you do not want. At the end of 3 days, I will make my decision about what is to be done." It was a judgment that satisfied no one fully but prevented immediate violence. James was assigned a small lodge at the edge of the camp, given food and water, and left largely alone for the remainder of that first day as the camp buzzed with gossip and speculation about the unprecedented situation. As evening approached, Kaya appeared at his lodge entrance, carrying a bowl of stew and fresh bread. Her young face was troubled but determined. "My sister asked me to bring you this. She cannot come herself right now because Father is speaking with her, and the elders are involved too, but she wanted you to know that she meant what she said." James accepted the food gratefully. "Your sister is very brave. I hope I have not caused her too much trouble." "You have caused her to finally speak her truth," Kaya replied with a slight smile. She has been unhappy about the expected marriage to Swift Arrow for many months, but felt trapped by duty and tradition. You gave her the courage to voice what her heart already knew. Whatever happens, I think she will always thank you for that. Over the next 3 days, James lived among the Comanche, and true to Brave Eagle's word, he was allowed to observe and participate in their daily life. He helped the men maintain their weapons and tend to the horses, skills that earned him grudging respect from some of the warriors. He sat with the elders and listened to their stories of the old days when the buffalo herds stretched to the horizon and the people roamed free across the plains. He played with the children, who were fascinated by this strange white man who spoke their language and laughed at their jokes. Throughout it all, he caught glimpses of Ayana, though they were never allowed to speak privately. She worked alongside the other women, preparing hides, cooking, and caring for the younger children. But whenever their eyes met across the camp, James felt that same powerful connection, that sense of recognition that went beyond logic or reason. On the second evening, as James sat by his fire, an old woman approached him. She was tiny and bent with age, her face a map of wrinkles, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. She settled herself beside him without asking permission, and studied him for a long moment before speaking in heavily accented English. "I am Singing Bird, grandmother to many in this camp. I have lived through 7 times 10 winters and have seen much. I watched you these past days, white man. I see how you watch Ayana, and how she watches you when she thinks no one notices. I see something else too, something the young warriors blinded by anger cannot see." "What do you see, grandmother?" James asked respectfully, using the term of honor for an elder woman. "I see that the old ways are dying," Singing Bird said sadly. "Not because they are wrong, but because the world is changing faster than we can change with it. The buffalo disappear, the land is taken, our people are pushed into smaller and smaller spaces. Chief Brave Eagle knows this in his heart, though it pains him. He knows that our children and grandchildren will live in a different world than the one we knew. Perhaps a world where Comanche and white must find ways to live side by side, to become family rather than enemies. She reached out and placed a weathered hand on James's arm. You and Ayanna, you could be a bridge between our peoples. It will not be easy. Many will hate you for it, both white and Comanche. But bridges are necessary if we are to cross the divide that separates us. I will speak to the chief. I will tell him what this old woman sees. True to her word, Singing Bird spent the evening in deep conversation with Brave Eagle and the Council of Elders. James could see them through the hide walls of the chief's lodge, shadows moving in animated discussion as the moon rose high overhead. He tried not to hope too much, knowing that the obstacles remained formidable regardless of what the elders decided. On the morning of the third day, Brave Eagle summoned James to the center of the camp. The entire tribe gathered to hear the chief's judgment, and the tension was palpable. Swift Arrow stood with several young warriors, his face set in rigid lines of anger and betrayal. Kaya stood with the women, her hands clasped nervously, and Ayanna stood beside her father, her beautiful face composed but her eyes revealing her anxiety. Brave Eagle spoke in both Comanche and English, ensuring everyone understood his words. I have watched James Morgan these 3 days. I have listened to my people's opinions, both those who support him and those who oppose him. I have prayed to the Great Spirit for guidance, and I have consulted with my wisest elders. Now I will give my judgment. The chief paused, and in that moment of silence, James felt his entire future hanging in the balance. James Morgan has proven himself to be a man of honor and courage. He saved my daughter's lives at great personal risk. He has shown respect for our ways and has conducted himself with dignity during his time among us. But more than this, I have seen that my daughter Ayanna has chosen him in her heart, and I have raised her to be a woman of wisdom and strength. I will not ignore the choice of her heart. Hope flared in James's chest, but Brave Eagle was not finished. However, the path you wish to walk together is not an easy one. If you are to be together, you must prove that your bond is strong enough to withstand the hatred and prejudice you will face from both peoples. Therefore, I propose a test. Brave Eagle turned to face his daughter directly. Ayanna, if you truly wish to be with this man, you must be willing to leave our camp for one full cycle of the moon. You will travel with James to the nearest white settlement and live among his people as he has lived among ours. If at the end of that time you still wish to be together, and if James can show that he can protect you and provide for you in the white man's world, as well as he has shown he can in ours, then you will have my blessing to marry. But if either of you has doubts, you will return to us, and we will speak no more of this matter. It was a clever solution, James realized, one that tested their commitment while also giving Ayanna a chance to understand what life outside the tribe would truly mean. He looked at Ayanna, trying to read her expression, wondering if she would accept such terms. Ayanna met his gaze steadily, and then she spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. I accept these terms, Father. I will go with James, and we will prove that our bond can weather any storm. Swift Arrow let out a cry of rage and despair, but he was held back by the other warriors as Brave Eagle raised his hand for silence. It is decided then. You will leave tomorrow at first light. May the Great Spirit watch over you both and guide your steps. That evening, as the camp settled into an uneasy quiet, James and Ayanna were finally permitted to speak privately, walking along the stream under the watchful eyes of Kaya, who served as their chaperone. The stars overhead seemed to shine more brightly than usual, and the sound of the water over stones provided a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. Are you certain about this? James asked, taking Ayanna's hand in his for the first time. The touch sent a thrill through him, a sense of rightness that confirmed everything he had been feeling. The white settlements are not kind to Indian women. You will face suspicion, insults, perhaps even violence. I can protect you as best I can, but I cannot shield you from everything. Ayanna squeezed his hand, her fingers strong and sure. I am certain. These past 3 days, unable to speak with you but watching you from afar, I have had much time to think. I could have chosen the safe path, married Swift Arrow, remained with my people in the traditional way. But that path felt like a slow death to me, a burial of who I truly am. When I am near you, I feel alive in a way I never have before. I feel seen, truly seen, not as a chief's daughter or a potential wife to secure alliances, but as myself, Ayanna, a woman with her own dreams and desires. They walked in comfortable silence for a few moments before James spoke again. I want you to know that I will do everything in my power to make you happy, to honor you and protect you. I know I am asking you to give up much, your people, your familiar life, perhaps even your father's full approval if we fail this test. But I promise you, Ayanna, if you choose me, I will spend every day of my life proving that you made the right choice. Ayanna stopped walking and turned to face him, her face illuminated by moonlight, and James thought he had never seen anything more beautiful. And I promise you, James Morgan, that if you choose me, I will bring all of my strength, my courage, and my love to our life together. We will face whatever comes as partners, as equals. We will build something new, a bridge between two worlds, as Singing Bird said. It will not be easy, but the best things never are. Unable to resist any longer, James gently cupped her face in his hands and leaned down to kiss her. It was a tender kiss, full of promise and hope, a seal on the commitment they were making to each other. When they parted, both were smiling, and even Kaya, watching from a respectful distance, was grinning with delight. The next morning, as the sun rose over the canyon walls, James and Ayanna prepared to depart. Kaya embraced her sister tearfully, making Ayanna promise to send word when she could. Brave Eagle gave his daughter a long, meaningful look, and James saw the love and concern warring in the chief's eyes. But he also saw acceptance, a father's trust in his daughter's strength and wisdom. Care for her well, James Morgan, Brave Eagle said quietly as he clasped James's arm in the warrior's greeting. She is more precious to me than all the horses on the plains, more valuable than any treasure. If you betray my trust, there is no place you can hide where my warriors will not find you. I understand, Chief, James replied solemnly, and I give you my word as a man of honor that I will protect her with my life and cherish her with my heart. As they rode out of camp, Ayanna seated behind James on his mare. Both of them looked back one final time. The Comanche camp, nestled in its canyon, looked peaceful and timeless in the morning light. But both James and Ayanna knew that time was not standing still, that the world was changing in ways that would transform everything. They were choosing to change with it, to be part of creating something new, rather than clinging desperately to what was passing away. The month that followed tested them in ways neither had fully anticipated. The nearest white settlement, a rough town called Cottonwood Springs, greeted them with open hostility. The sight of a white man with an Indian woman stirred up ugly reactions. They were refused service at the general store until James made it clear he would take his business elsewhere. They were spat at in the street by drunken cowboys. The local pastor delivered a sermon about the sins of mixing races that was clearly directed at them. But they also found unexpected allies. A widow named Martha Henderson, who ran a boarding house, offered them a room when no one else would. An old buffalo hunter named Ezekiel recognized James from his army days and vouched for his character to anyone who would listen. And slowly, through consistent dignity and kindness, James and Ayanna began to change some minds. Ayanna proved herself more than capable of adapting to the white man's world. She learned to cook their foods, to wear their dresses when necessary for public appearances, though she preferred her traditional clothing in private. She helped Martha Henderson with her boarding house, and her skill with healing herbs earned her the grudging respect of several townspeople when she successfully treated a child's dangerous fever after the town doctor had given up hope. James found work as a scout and guide for wagon trains heading west, his knowledge of the territory and native languages making him valuable despite the controversy surrounding his marriage plans. He saved every penny, determined to prove to Brave Eagle that he could provide for Ayanna in this new world they were building together. Through it all, their love deepened and strengthened. They learned each other's ways, shared their fears and hopes, and built a foundation of trust and respect that went far beyond the initial attraction. They talked long into the night about the future they wanted to create, about children who would belong to both worlds and neither, about a life lived on their own terms, rather than dictated by the prejudices of others. When the full moon cycle was complete, they traveled back to the Comanche camp together. This time, when they rode in, they did so with their heads held high, hands clasped together, radiating the confidence of two people who had faced the worst the world could throw at them and emerged stronger. Brave Eagle met them in the center of the camp, and this time his smile was genuine and warm. "I see in your eyes that you have passed the test. I see in the way you stand together that your bond is true. I see in my daughter's face the happiness I always wished for her, but feared she would never find." He turned to address the assembled tribe. "My daughter has chosen her path, and I honor her choice. James Morgan has proven himself worthy of her in every way that matters. I give my blessing to their union, and I declare that any who would harm them or speak ill of them will answer to me personally." The wedding ceremony that followed blended both Comanche and Christian traditions, a fitting symbol of the bridge they were building. They exchanged vows in both English and Comanche, promising to love and honor each other for all their days. Singing Bird sang traditional songs of blessing, while Martha Henderson, who had traveled from Cottonwood Springs for the occasion, read passages from her well-worn Bible about love conquering all. As the celebration continued into the night, James and Ayanna slipped away to the stream, where they had shared their first kiss. Under the same stars that had witnessed their promise to each other, they renewed those vows in private, speaking from their hearts without the formality of ceremony. "We did it," Ayanna whispered, her head resting on James's shoulder as they sat by the water's edge. "We proved that love can bridge any divide, that two people from different worlds can build something beautiful together." "We did more than that," James replied, kissing the top of her head. "We showed everyone, both your people and mine, that there is another way forward, that we do not have to be enemies forever, that understanding and respect and love are possible if we are brave enough to reach for them." Years later, when people asked them about their unlikely union, about how a white cavalry captain and a Comanche chief's daughter had found each other and built a life together, they would tell the story of two sisters in danger and one man's decision to risk everything to save them. They would talk about a father's wisdom in testing their commitment and a tribe's willingness to consider a new path. They would speak of the challenges they faced and overcame, and the children they raised who carried the best of both their heritages. But most of all, they would talk about love, about how love, when it is true and strong and brave, can change the world one heart at a time. And as they grew old together, still holding hands, still facing the world as partners and equals, they became living proof that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply choosing to love across the boundaries that divide us. Their story became legend among both the Comanche and the settlers of Texas, a tale told around campfires and hearths, of how one man's decision to risk his life for two sisters changed not just their fates, but opened a door to a different future, one where two peoples could find common ground through understanding, respect, and love.